evening. You're listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch, and as always, we're live on YouTube. Tonight we look back at how British clubs fared in the first week of the Champions League proper. It's an English football special tonight in the company of Talk of the Town podcast host, Dunstable Town, Leeds United and Spurs fan, and can he not say it, Washington Commanders fan, Andy Burrows. As always, I'm joined by former manager hiding away in the corner, Dennis Newell, to look at the weekend's Premier Trophy fixtures in Scotland. So go ahead, like, subscribe and tell your friends. Dennis, how we doing?
Fine, Cammy, yourself?
Not bad at all, mate.
Good.
Back in Dreich Drab, Scotland.
Yeah.
But no.
You know, you brought some of the weather back from you, Gran Canaria, but it's turning cold again. But nothing new here.
No, nothing new at all. Well, I was in Gran Canaria the last couple of weeks. Last weekend, our guest Andy Burrows spent the weekend in Washington DC. Andy, you recovered?
Just about, my friend. Just about. It was a trip. It's a long way to go, but as we got to see the mighty Washington Commanders win a game undefeated when the UK lads go over. So yeah. It was a great trip, great experience. The jet lag has absolutely kicked my ass this week. I'm not going to lie, since I've been back on Tuesday, Wednesday, we got back. But yeah, great trip. Always good to go and see the Washington Commanders play. Yeah.
And obviously we'll finish off the American football talk tonight, but obviously the Washington Commanders literally did play football.
Yeah, I think they've done it for us Brits. Obviously, winning a game with pure field goals. They must have known that we were there. We scored a touchdown, but it was ruled back. It would have been the kickoff return. We returned it for a touchdown, but there was more penalty flags on the field than you can shake a stick at the end of that play. So it was good to see us win. Like they say, they must have done it for us Brits, just kicking field goals the whole game. But as always, it was a great experience, man. I absolutely loved being over there.
Is there any British players play with them?
Funny enough, the Giants kicker was Scottish.
And punter.
Punter. But no, sorry, the punter was Scottish, but the punter had to turn into the kicker because the kicker got injured. So the poor guy had to pull double duty. And if they had their kicker, they might have beat us. But the Scottish, he's Scottish, the punter for the New York Giants.
It's an appropriate name for centre half, that punter.
I couldn't possibly
I think actually both of them are Scottish, Dennis, and they're both from Arbroath, believe it or not. Gano and Gillen, I think, are both for Arbroath, Andy. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Mate, both Scottish,
yeah. So crazy.
I know we're diversifying slightly, but I know very, very little or nothing about it. What's the salaries like in relation to what we have discussed?
No, it's a salary cap over there, which I think is a great idea. But if they ever brought that into the Premier League, I think there'd be anarchy. Or if they ever brought that into football in general, we'll probably get into it later. But that's one way if you want to make football easier for people and more, I think it should be a cap on wages. I think the wages are ridiculous, but I'm sure we can get into that later.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to have some kind of cap down south, but obviously the FFP. But if you're Manchester City or whoever, it doesn't really matter. But again, that's something we can get into at a later date or later on. Obviously, this week, getting back to the football that most folk are familiar with, Champions League this week, Dennis, started proper. Celtic, start with the Scottish clubs, a fantastic result against Slovan Bratislava. Not the greatest name in world football, but a 5-1 victory is a 5-1 victory.
So doubt, yeah. Brendan Rodgers said before the game that basically what he was looking at was, or he was saying it's the most prepared he's felt, or words to that effect, or most comfortable he's felt about going into a tie. Well, it certainly was in relation to the performance with Celtic was excellent, and I'll not take that away from them. But I thought Bratislava were shocking. And I thought they are the worst European team I've seen, and that includes against Rangers, Hearts, Kilmarnock, the whole shooting match. They were poor. And I'm just wondering, Brendan Rodgers made that statement on the fact that I'm sure he had them watched a few times. So it was maybe a cocky statement in relation to knowing how sure he was about winning that tie. And it was 5 going on 10. You know, the one thing that Bratislava had was their goal. It's absolutely outstanding when he took it on the outside of his boot into the top corner. But other than that, I just think that, we're looking at it now and saying, excellent tie, but the big guns will be coming out for them shortly. But I'll tell you what, you can't knock it. The start they've got is second to none. And when you look at that table, that is actually a massive league table. I know it all splits up eventually. But you've got 36 teams in that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, when I opened the league fixtures up, I thought I'd pulled up the wrong Premier League. I thought it was Scottish Premier League because Celtic are sitting in the top two. They're in second place.
Behind Bayern Munich, I assume.
Absolutely incredible. So, a great start for them. And hopefully they'll continue in the same vein, you know. It's a tough tie they've got coming up next, right enough. Yeah,
who they got next?
Borussia Dortmund. And I'll just give you the other fixtures as well. You've got Borussia Dortmund away. That's the next one. Then they've got Atlanta away again. Then they've got Leipzig.
3-0 each way, Arsenal.
Yeah. You've got Bruges after that at home. Dynamo Zagreb, and that's away. And Young Boys at home. And then Aston Villa. So that's the ties they've got left.
Yeah.
I didn't think Bratislava would be as poor as that. So I'm just hoping maybe Celtic has improved to that degree in Europe. It would be great to see if that's the case. But the thing we always looked at for Scottish football was to get past December. These ties go into January anyway, so they don't need to worry about into the turn of the year. So, a good night in that front. There was a lot of other decent ties as well. You know, you just need to pick out one or two. I watched bits and pieces of it, and the one that stood out for me, obviously, was Bayern Munich against Dynamo Zagreb, and which Celtic are going to play against, which might be a nice cosy tie for them. Bayern won 9-2. And again, that could have been 12 or 13. It really was. Bayern just looked in a different league altogether.
Yeah. 4 goals for ex-Spurs man Andy. Harry Kane in that game as well.
Yeah. Super Harry, 3 penalties. He's the all-time English leading goal scorer now in the Champions League. The GOAT still going, mate. What a player.
Did you miss him at Spurs?
He's still looking.
Do we miss him at Spurs? Oh, mate, we do. We just, like you say, we just signed Solanke for 65 million. So, I'd have him back tomorrow. I think he's the greatest English striker that's ever lived.
Yeah, it's some difference. Get shot at Harry Kane for 60-odd million, 70 million, and replace him with a 65 million pound striker who you mentioned earlier on had barely kicked his own arse in his whole career.
It's typical. Don't get me wrong. I hope it comes off, and I hope he does well at Tottenham. Obviously, I'm a Tottenham fan, but 65 million on a guy that's had one good season at Bournemouth. But everyone said Harry Kane had one good season when he originally broke through, and look where he's gone. So I wish Solanke well. It's typical though. He signs for Tottenham. He hadn't got injured the whole season for Bournemouth. He played one game for Spurs against Leicester, and then missed the next 3. So typical. I don't know what it is with Tottenham, but it's just our luck.
Yeah, a lot of teams get that. You know, he's only played 3 games, and I think the jury's out, and I think that's unfair. You know, he's had 5 shots and 1 glaring chance he's had, and it's not a lot, but it's not a lot of game time. And you know, you gauge somebody at the end of the season and say, was that money well spent? If he can produce the goals by getting the service that I think Tottenham need to supply him with, then you might find that he'll be a worthwhile buy. But that's an awful lot of money. And, you know, if you ask maybe Joe Bloggs in the street in the close season who he was playing with, half of them wouldn't have known he was at Bournemouth. So we'll just need to wait and see how he turns out.
Yeah. Looking obviously at English clubs in the Champions League, Andy. Liverpool, good 3-1 away victory in Milan. Manchester City seemed to struggle against Inter with a 0-0 each draw. As I say, Arsenal last night drawing 0-0 each with the Italians Atalanta, and the 4th side has actually escaped me.
Aston Villa
with a good 3-0 victory as well. You know, 3 goals in the first half. 2 goals in the first half, and huffed and puffed and got the 3rd one as well. So good performances all in, Andy, by British clubs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not paying as much interest to the Champions League this year as Tottenham didn't make it. But yeah, no, it was good. I'm really interested to see how Aston Villa do. I've got a couple of Aston Villa mates, and you seem to forget that Aston Villa are an absolutely ginormous club down here.
Yep.
You know, and obviously that's been recent years. It's been all about Liverpool, Man City, etc., etc. But you know, Aston Villa are an enormous football club. It'd be really interesting to see how they balance Champions League and the Premier League, and then obviously the FA Cup. Right? You know, you've got so many competitions now. Have they got the squad to do it? I think the new format might suit them a little bit more than the original format that we had last season. I think this longer format might suit them, like you guys just said. It alluded to. You know, it goes on until January, so at least Scottish clubs will definitely be playing for Champions League football in January. But it's going to be interesting to see how Aston Villa do. Man City will come good. I mean, Man City. You know, you don't have one of the greatest strikers ever up front. You know, was it a blip really the other night with drawing? Probably not. Liverpool always fare well in the Champions League. You can never ever write Liverpool off. I think the year they won it in that great game, the 4-3 game, I think they nearly went out twice that year. And obviously you had the great comeback at Anfield with the Steven Gerrard last minute goal. You had obviously the Champions League final. So you can never write Liverpool out. So yeah, it's going to be and as for the lot down the road, the other lot that drew 0-0 last night, I hope they lose every single game and get knocked out in the group stages.
That's wishful thinking. Yeah, I think also you've got to look at Aston Villa and say how strong they're looking just now. That was an excellent result against Young Boys. I think Ollie Watkins is fit for the next game, although I think he took a knock in the Champions League game, but I think apparently he's okay and fit for the weekend game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a plus for Villa again. But it makes you wonder as well, when there's a lot of emphasis on Ollie Watkins, of the strength and depth, as you touched on a second ago, to see if they have got the what would you say, the power that will take them through the Premiership and the Champions League. And that's always the difficult part. You need people on that bench that can come on when you do get knocks, and everybody will get knocks at that level.
Yeah, I think success for them will be getting out the quote unquote group, like the league table now in the Champions League. If they can get out to what we know as the knockout stages, I think that would be a great start to the Champions League, because, you know, what you don't want to happen is what happened to Newcastle last season. It was all huff and puff and they ended up finishing bottom of the group, albeit they kind of shot themselves in the foot. It went down to the last game and they still could have qualified. But this new format, I'm quite intrigued to see how this new format plans out. I mean, obviously, you guys being up there in Scotland, all joking aside, it could benefit the Scottish clubs a little bit more, this longer format. And a lot of people are saying it's been done for money, etc., etc. And yeah, let's not lie, let's not kid ourselves. Yeah, it has been done to generate some more money. But when you flip the coin and you look at teams like Celtic and Rangers, who usually they're usually in the Europa League before the Christmas trees are up. So this gives them a chance to generate some more money, which I think we're going to get onto later, which Scottish football need more than anything. And B, maybe gives them a realistic chance of getting into what we know as the group stages in the Champions League. So obviously, you guys being up there in Scotland, I think this new Champions League format benefits Scottish football more than, say, down south.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And other than the fact, and we talked on this just last few weeks, was basically you had your group of four, and that was it. You could look at that group and go, hey, wait a minute, there's none of them are appetising or whets your appetite for a game to go and see. Here you've got an abundance of matches. And also, you look at it without going in great depth, you've got from 1 to 8 directly puts you into the finals if you're in that league section. The 36 just now, if you end up in the top 8, you will qualify for the finals. Then from 9 to 24 positions in that league, you will then be in a playoff. And if you're below that, which is, as I say, from 24 to 36, you're out. But you'll have had a good innings and a good return financially with the amount of games you've had. And I'm sure clubs will benefit from it, especially Scottish clubs, when you do look at the Europa League with Rangers and a couple of the ties they've got in it. But I think it's a great thing, and it'll change it a little bit. And I think it'll take a lot of pressure off teams if they don't win a game. If you're in that section of 4, every point is a prisoner. I don't think that's necessarily the same when you look at there's 8 opportunities on that fact, you'll get down to 24. So, you can afford to even be in the playoffs because there'll be 1 or 2 that have been scraping by as well. So, no, I think it's really good. And as you say, Andy, it'll take us through to the turn of the year where there's still life in the Champions League and Europa League as well.
And that's what you want with the window coming up as well. I mean, if you can sign some players that haven't been Champions League Cup tied and you're still in the mix in January, they're going to want to come to a Celtic, or they're going to want to go to the Europa League, to a Glasgow Rangers or something like that. So it can only benefit Scottish football, this longer format, because maybe you wouldn't have got players in the past in January because you're thinking, well, you're out the Champions League, the Europa League's not looking great. That only leaves me with the Scottish Cup in the league, and something we'll probably get onto later. The league's only ever contested by 2 teams. So this is going to benefit, I think, Scottish football drastically beyond belief. Like in January, when that window opens, if Joe Bloggs hasn't played Champions League football and Rangers and Celtic want, hey, look, we want to bolster this Champions League squad. Obviously, you've got to register them before the knockout stages. So if Celtic can get some players in say, December and say, look, hey, we can offer you Champions League football till January, and if we get through this, we're 8 points off qualifying for the next stage, or we can go drop down to the Europa. It can only be a good thing for the Scottish side.
Yeah. Without doubt. So interesting, good matches ahead, and previous matches have gone. Rangers, as we'll make it aware that they are playing Malmo on Thursday with a 5:45 kickoff. Malmo are sitting at the top of their league. And they're quite comfortable there. So I think Rangers have got a really tough tie. Malmo, I think, were they the team that played Notts Forest way back donkeys ago in the final?
Trevor Francis goal, 1-0.
Yeah, way back. That was John Robertson's day.
John Robertson, yeah.
Brian Clough and a whole load of them. I think Martin O'Neill was in that team as well, was he not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, reminiscing on that, but Malmo.
Andy and I are too young to remember that properly, Dennis.
Yeah, well, Rangers
way too young for this conversation.
Well, Rangers had Robert Pritz from Malmo at that time, after I should say. But Robert Pritz played in the Champions League final. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Rangers. Obviously, we'll talk about the weekend's games coming up because we'll get the League Cup as well. But as far as that goes, they will be playing on Thursday night.
Yeah, indeed they will be. After obviously the League Cup duties this weekend, but Hearts have got European football as well, Dennis.
Yes, and I'll need to find out where they are. There's an element there where I was just looking at, well, actually, I was going to mention Tottenham. They've got Karabakh, is it?
Karabakh on Thursday night. Karabakh, whatever they're called. Yeah, we're playing them on Thursday. The team I'm looking most forward to is Glasgow Rangers away.
Yeah. When you say
you're coming up.
Do you know what? I'd love to. It's literally, I think it's 2 days before Christmas. I think the game's on the Thursday and Christmas Day is like the week after. So I'd love to come to the game because I've been to Ibrox, I've done the stadium tour, and I was meant to go to a game the next day and I got food poisoning. So I travelled up for the weekend. I was meant to go to Rangers versus Hearts 2 seasons ago. Went out on the Friday night to one of the Rangers players' bars in Glasgow. Can't remember who it was. Had a great night, got food poisoning and didn't make the game on the weekend. So I really want to go and watch a game at Ibrox.
Yeah. Both grounds.
They're back home now. They're back to their home stadium.
Yeah, it was at Hampden for a while, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see what it's like at the weekend. Well, are we moving then to what Premier League in England? And
when we go, let's look at. I'm sure Andy won't want to discuss Spurs midweek. A lucky 2-1 victory over Coventry. But listen, a win's a win. Man United proved last year how difficult Coventry can be in the cup.
Well, the only thing that annoyed me was that Big Ange has come out and he's made a stupid statement of saying I always win something in my second season. Dude, you were the Celtic manager. I could probably win something in my second season if I'm the Celtic manager. But you played like our C team. If you look at our bench, if you want to win things, take the competition seriously. It's like a couple of seasons ago when we played in the FA Cup semi-final. And like we were a quarter final with Sheffield United away, and we rested like Harry Kane, etc., and we lost.
Yeah.
If Tottenham are serious about winning a trophy, which my God we need to, because I can't take any more BS from people about Tottenham not winning a trophy, then field your strongest team. I know we've got a game against Brentford coming up tomorrow, but if you realistically want to win a trophy, and you've only got to look at what Coventry have done, they technically should have beat Man United. That goal was offside by a toenail, if that. Technically should have won the FA Cup. Got to the final of the FA Cup against Man City. So for me, Tottenham need to, have a little bit of a reality check and say, look, if you want to win things, then field your strongest side. But look, we won the draws next week. Let's see who we get. But Big Ange is hanging by a thread. I'm telling you now, I think he's generally the charismatic Ange ball and everything got you so far. But if he defends any higher up the pitch, it's going to be next week. That's how high he defends. It's ridiculous. And you can't do. I think you might have got away with that in Scotland a little bit. You guys might be able to educate me a little bit more with the way you played. You can't do that in the Premier League. Let's be honest. You can't defend a high line against Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, etc., and expect to get away with it. Yep, we'll win the odd game and it'll be great, and we'll win 4-3. But then you've got an absolute whooping like we have done in the past. And Big Ange needs a big reality check soon. I mean, I hope he doesn't go, but if we lose to Brentford tomorrow, stay off social media.
The thing is, though, that he had an attacking game in Scotland. Now, that may well be because the standards are different and he was with the championship or Premier League winners. The thing is, he's maybe been a little bit of self-preservation, that when he comes down, he sees it's a different kettle of fish altogether. So he did start with the guns blazing when he went down at first to Tottenham. And then he changed his style of play. Now, that style of play has caught him out because he doesn't have that makeup in his system to be trying to, as you've just pointed out, play defensively. He doesn't have that. That's not his makeup. And when he came to Celtic, he emphasised the point that he was going to play attacking football because that's what the guy is in his genes. That's what he does. And therefore, he's maybe trying to say, okay, I've arrived. I'm now at Tottenham. Right, I need to be able to do everything. Well, you don't go the other way. And I think there's an element of that. The team and the players that he's got are good enough. And last year, he should end up higher in the division that they did. I just don't know fully where he went wrong, or did he just take it too far? Before I continue in that, the reason I never picked that up, Hearts are in the Conference League, Cammy, which you were mentioning maybe Europa. They've got Dynamo Minsk on the 3rd of October. That's who they've got. Hearts got, and that's at 5:45. Sorry. So back to Tottenham. Was that a throw of the dice to spend the 65 million on him just to see if that would get him out of jail? Only time will tell on that. But as I said right at the start, he needs service. If you're playing more in your own last third, then you're not going to get the ball up to this guy because he'll not play a long ball.
No, he won't. And I mean, it's all well and good. I mean this with the utmost respect. It's all well and good playing a high line against Aberdeen and St Mirren and God knows, and I do mean that with the utmost respect. You go and do that against Man City, against Arsenal, against pretty much anyone in the Premier League. If you do that for the 30-odd games a season, you're going to get found out. You can probably, with Celtic, you've got the players to do it because you're playing against, Aberdeen and Hearts. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you go and do that against like Alfie Inga Haaland and all them boys at Man City. You're going to do it against Liverpool, who are one of the best counter-attacking teams around. Then they'll just pick you off. And I think that's where he's being a little bit too stubborn because he's like, no,
if that's all you know. But if that's all you know, then you're really strapped in how you get yourself in jail with it. And
it'll cost him his job. It'll cost him his job eventually if he keeps doing it. I'm telling you now, he'll be back in Scottish football, or he'll be out in Saudi Arabia, or he'll look at Steven Gerrard. He's done amazing things at Glasgow Rangers. Tried to come down and do similar at Aston Villa. Got found out. Brendan Rodgers come down south, got found out, ended up doing nothing and ended up going back to Celtic. And again, don't mean that disrespectfully, but us three could probably say, right here, Andy, Cammy, Dennis, is the Celtic job. You've got a great chance of going to win the league.
Yeah.
That's not being disrespectful, and that's a chat we're going to have later about the Scottish clubs. But this is where Big Ange, maybe his stubbornness is going to, like Dennis just said, he only knows how to play one way. That one way you can't do in the Premier League. You need to be adaptable. Look at Pep. Look at Jurgen Klopp. Look at all the great managers that the Premier League have had. They've been adaptable. Look at Alex Ferguson over the years. Why do you think Man United have such good longevity? A, he knew how to rotate the players, and B, he knew how to change their style of play to different circumstances. They had Liverpool when he first come there. They had to adapt. Arsenal were their main rivals for a little bit. They had to adapt to the way Arsene Wenger done things. Big Ange is just like, we're defending on the halfway line. If you don't like it, tough. And it's going to get him the sack.
Yeah, it's going to get caught out eventually, and that's the thing. Managers at times can be too stubborn. We've seen it. We've seen it for 4 years. Again at Washington, but managers and coaches can be far too stubborn. And as you say, if it's going to cost Postecoglou his job, then maybe he does need to change and adapt and change the style of play. But who knows? Who knows if he will do or not? That's one of these things. Other fixtures, Dennis, this week. How we're looking in the Premier League then down south?
In the Premier League, yeah, we have Saturday's games is West Ham against Chelsea. Aston Villa have Wolves, who have had a poor start in my eyes. I think they'll pick up though. Fulham and Newcastle. Will Leicester have Everton? Everton, they're doomed. New stadium.
We need to discuss Everton. I think we need to talk Everton once this is done.
Liverpool have got Bournemouth, Southampton, Ipswich, Tottenham, Brentford, as we've mentioned. Crystal Palace are playing Man United, and then on Sunday you've got Brighton have Notts Forest, Man City have Arsenal. Just looking at the times on the Saturday match, Crystal Palace play Man United at 5:30. The other games are 3 o'clock.
Evening kick-off.
Yeah, and on the Sunday, Brighton's game against Notts Forest is 2 o'clock, and Man City against Arsenal is 4:30 p.m.
Live on Super Sunday.
Yes. So, yep, I think the attractive tie for me is probably Southampton, believe it or not, against Ipswich Town, because I've looked at Ipswich, and I know you might say, "Oh, that's not a glamorous tie," but I think there's a lot at stake because I've looked at Southampton. And I think they're really struggling. They haven't won a game yet. And I looked at Ipswich and I said that right from the outset. I think they could probably be a surprise team that comes into the Premiership and maybe get somewhere, maybe near the top half of the league. So therefore, there'll be a lot to play for. And if Southampton are going to get anywhere, they really need to win this game. Ipswich not started well, but they've had really hard ties. They've lost their first two and they've drawn their second 2 games as it happens. So, yeah, I picked that one out. Obviously, there's a glamour ties. Man City, Arsenal, without a question of doubt, is the match of the weekend. Crystal Palace against Man United. And just touching on Man United, I look at them and think, I'm looking to see them get beaten every game. I don't know why that is. They just don't seem to have that thing that's saying to me, this team is ready to go. They just don't seem to be able to do it.
Yeah, the fear doesn't seem to be surrounding Manchester United anymore, Andy.
No, that's long gone, Cammy, mate. That's long gone. I think since Fergie left and Moisey took over, and then they've just had manager after manager after manager. They're probably one of the biggest clubs in the world in name, and that's it at the minute. And whoever thought they would have said that Man United are only big in name? Look, yep, they're a humongous club. They've won many Premier League, Champions League. I'm not debating that for a second. But as of the here and now, they're an absolute shell of what they used to be. And, everyone's starting to talk about Man United in the past tense. Me growing up, that would never have happened. All I've ever known is Man United dominating the Premier League, dominating Europe, winning FA Cups, the great, great teams that they've had throughout the years. And for whatever reason, and you can put it's probably from the board all the way down since Ferguson's left. That club is just, the stadium's leaking. You've only got to listen to what Ronaldo said when he come back. The training ground is still the same now as when Ronaldo originally joined. They've lived off their name for so long, and they thought that would take them so far, and that's now run out. They're not producing on the football pitch. They've got a manager who's dead man walking. He will not be there probably come Christmas. I'll be amazed if he's there come Christmas. They went out and looked for a manager, and they didn't hide the fact that they went and interviewed 2 managers, and they both said no in Tuchel and the Ipswich manager now. They both said no. So they went, oh, okay, we'll offer Ten Hag a new contract. If I'm Ten Hag, I'm thinking, hang on a minute. You don't really want me here. He's taking it. Let's not be. The money's going to be great. He's probably thought, I'll take it. It's a job. I'm going to get paid a shed load of money to carry on here. But when your own club don't want you, they're an absolute shell of what they were. And don't get me wrong, it's made it a little bit more competitive down south at Man United, but we've now got Man City that have taken over. But as for Man United, Cammy and Dennis, they're so off it. It's unbelievable. I don't know what it would take to turn that club around. It really, you're gonna have to rip it up from its core.
And I think that's what the new owners are doing, or the guy who's come in, Ratcliffe, is looking to do. You know, he's looking to take over football operations. You've brought the director of football in from Newcastle. So I think obviously they are looking to and realise that they're going to have to rebuild from the ground up. You know, so.
Well, they've got you, Andy, a week on Sunday. At home.
Yeah, we've got them at Old Trafford. Yeah, we've got obviously we're playing Brentford tomorrow, and then we've got Man United away. So this interview will probably come back to bite me in the arse. We'll probably lose 3-0 and do typical Tottenham. And it's what we. If you want to win, the running joke is if you do want to win a game of football and you haven't been playing well, play Spurs.
Yeah, well, again, you can put that almost in the same light as Man United, because Tottenham were looking good for a long number of years, and they just missed that extra push to get them to win the championship. And there was a period last year, and I say a period, although it was small, where they looked as if they were going to be a threat. And it seems to have all gone, as we touched on there. But you're right, Manchester United are nowhere to be seen when it comes to a world team now with quality in their team. And I keep going back to it. If you're looking at playing Maguire as your centre half, I think you're on a hiding to none. He's not going to win you anything. And even the England team, I look at it and they keep throwing him in. You must go and get fresh blood. If Harry Maguire's done his time, he's been a good servant to the club and his country, but you have to move on. And that's the point you touched on, was the fact that they're stale. There's nothing happening there. And the manager is probably in the same boat. And they really need to give themselves a shake-up, because it's disappointing. Everybody throughout the world used to look at Man United with a bit of respect. I don't see that there now.
No. Going to bring it back again to us, Andy. 30 years of suffering a shit owner. You know, and now we've got such a positive vibe around us as a franchise. You look at Manchester United, the Glazers are doing them absolutely no favours. And again, talking about your own club, Spurs, the situation down there at New White Hart Lane must really stem from the top. You know, again, it must stem from the owners. So if you don't have the ownership right, as Washington have proved in, as I say, the last 30 years, your club is going to struggle, your franchise is going to struggle.
Yeah, the problem you've got now is that they want to run football clubs as a business, and I say now that problem's it's been running through the Premier League, God knows, probably since it formed. Really, that is where it started. But look, I'm not knocking any like foreign owners or anyone that comes in, but football isn't football now; it's a business. And Daniel Levy runs.
Totally agree with that. I think the thing that people was there for
like a business. We could make X amount of money, and you know football will always be secondary to Daniel Levy. But then you go and look at what Man City have done, and they probably could be demoted. God knows what's going to happen to them. But you know they've been all right. Let's win things and let's build off commercially. Now I was in America last week and I saw a few Man City shirts flying around. You'd never seen that 10, 15 years ago. It was all Man United. It was all Liverpool. Football is. It's not about the fans anymore. It's not about it. It's all about how much money clubs can make. They don't. I'm going to Tottenham tomorrow. It's cost me £70 for my ticket. It's cost me £70 for my wife's ticket. £45 for my daughter's ticket. That's before I've even left the house. You know,
it's £200
Yeah, it's £200 day, easy. All right, it's my daughter's birthday. We'd do it. We're Spurs members. We've got a season ticket at the ladies' team. We're going to go every Sunday. That was only £85 for a season ticket. So, you know, all these people that come out and say, "Oh, you know, it's still the beautiful game." It's the beautiful game, but it's nowhere near what it was when we were all growing up. The way we know football now, football clubs do not care about supporters. Man United do not care about their supporters. They care about making money. Man City care about making money. Liverpool, Tottenham, all these clubs, all they're worried about. I go to Tottenham a fair amount, and all you see is the tourists there with their Heung-min Son flags, and you know, the guy behind me bought his ticket of StubHub for £150 to come and see Tottenham play Crystal Palace. You know, that's where football is nowadays. You know, the football fan they don't care. That's what we'll get into it later. That's why my main passion is non-league football in Dunstable Town. They really care about the non-league, care about fans. They care about me and you. They care about me bringing my daughter to the football. Nowadays is outpriced. You can't take your family, you can't take your kids to football anymore. And clubs like Man United, etc., they don't care about us. They don't care about the supporters. I mean, I don't know what it's like up there, how you guys feel about the Celtic and Rangers or whatever Scottish team you support, but that's the way football's. If Rangers and Celtic want to make more money, they're not going to care about the fans. If Celtic get through to the next stage of the Champions League, you watch them charge about £90 a ticket if they get Man City at home. Yeah. They won't care. There's a cap.
Andy, they're actually, it spills onto the statement you've made there, because in Celtic they're a selling club. 30 years ago, Celtic were never a selling club. No. As soon as they get a player, he's out the door. The supporters are always shortchanged, and I've ranted about this for years when we've done the radio programme every Friday night. I ranted at how the board of directors shortchanged the supporters all the time by just, what would you say, almost lining their own pockets. There was a chief executive there who, when Celtic were playing badly, the top tier of Celtic Park could not be filled, and he ended up with a £2 million bonus that year, which is disgusting. But the supporters, especially in Scotland, and you'll have them in England, are diehards. They're honest. They work all week to go and see their club, and they're being shortchanged, because the one thing that I will go on about and always rant about is, what is football about? It's not a day out. It's to go and be entertained at the football, and we don't get entertained because the points you're making is down to money. If that was the case, Celtic wouldn't sell so many players on, and the supporters would be entertained for the money they're paying.
Yeah, and if you look at it, you can go to the Brentford fans. It's only costing them 30 quid because there's a cap on away fans.
Yes.
But they're sitting in the same stadium as me. I don't know if it's the same in Scotland. Do the away fans get capped? Down here, away fans only pay £30 for a ticket. But Andy, I'm going to the same stadium.
Yeah,
Andy, if you're an Old Firm supporter, you don't get into the games. If you're playing Celtic and Rangers, there's only one supporter who gets in. It's at Parkhead, it's Celtic. If it's Rangers supporters. So
Ibrox,
changed.
What is that about up there, just briefly? Why are away fans not allowed at Celtic and Rangers games? Is it purely because of the trouble?
That's part of it, but there's also an element of safety, I think, and stuff was needing to be in place that I think Celtic and Rangers were at loggerheads because Celtic had done their part of it, and apparently Rangers hadn't fulfilled the requirement. And I think that's how the last game at Parkhead, Celtic, I think, decided, I'm not 100% sure, and it decided that no away supporters would be coming along because Rangers couldn't fulfill their end of the deal with Celtic going to Ibrox. So
there's an element of tit for tat. I think Celtic supporters say Rangers fans aren't getting in, so Rangers fans says, well, we're not letting your fans in, or Rangers say we're not letting your fans in. So I think there is an element of tit for tat there. So
you're definitely spot on, Andy, and everything you're saying about the supporters not counting, especially in the English Premiership, because it is expensive, and I don't accept that £30 for visiting supporters is ideal either, because all that does is cause confrontation. Now, I know if you want to go to Brentford, you don't really want to go to Brentford for £30. You want a stadium that's similar to what your own club's playing in. So the bottom line is, where are you going to get that? You need to travel away to the top end of the country to Manchester or something like that, or Liverpool. Well, I'm sorry, but that doesn't whet my appetite. Yeah, for a day out and tourists come to it, you're talking about Tottenham Stadium, right? I think when it's a stadium of that quality, which is probably the best in the world, if not in the top 3 or 4, then I think people should be paying the same going rate as their supporters are.
Yeah, and it's 70 quid a ticket. You're getting screwed either way, irrespective of whether you're a home fan or an away fan. I mean, I know that's something to do in Germany in terms, obviously, the 20 euros for an away ticket. And that includes obviously it includes local travel to the ground as well, which if you're a Man United fan or a Liverpool fan and you're going to Arsenal or you're going to Chelsea and you've got to travel down the M6 or you've got to get a train or whatever, then fair enough, 30 quid. But when you're a Brentford fan and all you're doing is going around the corner to obviously a North London stadium, the 30 quid thing doesn't necessarily make any sense, because obviously you've got same travel as you say, Andy, as yourself.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, mate. The worrying thing is it's only going to get worse. This, when eventually in years to come, when this Super League eventually happens, and it will, you're crazy if you don't think it will happen. You're absolutely batshit crazy if you don't think that Super League is going to happen. They tried to do it a couple of seasons ago. All right, it got kiboshed. Money will dictate the world, and it dictates the way the world goes round, whether that's football, politics, whatever. Money dictates it. They will throw enough money at the Premier League or whoever the powers that be to make that decision that Man United, Liverpool, all the Man City, Rangers, Celtic, all the big clubs are in Europe will be playing in a Super League within the next 10 to 20 years. I guarantee you.
I've already discussed the new format of the Champions League. That's it. That's the start.
You're looking at the Champions League, right? And then you look and you say to yourself, wait a minute, how many teams are in that league? You just, even if you take your two leagues, you've got a Champions League and you have 36 as well in the Europa, right? You could just go around Europe and play them. And all you would have to do is the winner of each league takes a slot in the Europa and Champions League. Yep. You still play a circuit, but we've already got that in my eyes when I look at, you call it Super League. We have now created that 36 in two divisions that will take up a lot of time. And because of that, I believe that it won't improve our standard of our Saturday games or week games.
Domestic football.
It will deteriorate. Yeah. What I would do personally is I would switch over. I would switch the Europa League and the Champions League to the Saturdays and Sundays, and clubs play their games midweek. In other words,
imagine having to go to Man City on a Wednesday night and then the following.
No, I know that, but you've still got your quality in the Saturday. That means then if you want to go to Bratislava for a weekend or you want to go to Milan, you're taking in your football club over that weekend. And that would give you a Saturday and Sunday match of the top quality. Remember, come the winter, especially in the UK, games are postponed, they're altered anyway. Our parts are stable enough throughout the winter, and especially in Scotland, because we're familiar with it, to play midweek games. So I would rather have Hearts and Aberdeen playing on a Wednesday night as our Premiership, and Celtic and Rangers were playing at the weekend, maybe in Milan or Portugal or somewhere like that. And that, to me, would be more attractive rather than trying to slot two teams for Scotland into an English Premiership or into a Super League. The Super League's already there. I'm sitting looking at it just now. The Europa League and the Champions League, there's 36 in each of them. All you have to do is try and whittle that down to the point of how you play them twice, or you just play them once, and that gets you through the season. I'm more or less doing that off the top of my head, but there will be a structure there that you could put in place with the teams that are actually qualifying in these top championships just now. But I definitely would use that as a weekend and see how that went for maybe 3 or 4 years. It's just a different way of looking at it, because a lot of people are not happy with the system we've got just now.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking that off the top of my head there as well. Let's bring that back then. If, for instance, on a Saturday, Andy, Spurs are playing, let's say, Milan, in be it the Champions League, be it the Europa League or the Super League, Division 2 or whatever you want to call it, where does that leave clubs like Dunstable Town on a Saturday? If folk are fighting to go and see these games on a Saturday, does it increase the attendance at Dunstable because you're not going to get a ticket for the Spurs game, or does it decrease it because everybody's trying to get a ticket for Spurs against Milan?
I think you'll always
half of these games would be away, Cammy.
Yeah.
You'll get your diehards that will go. It's a novel idea. I'm always up for football discussion and ideas. I don't think it would ever catch on if like Tottenham were playing Milan away on a Saturday. The whole thing with the Champions League is like, it's been midweek. It's, could you afford to go Saturday, then the following Saturday you're at home to Borussia Dortmund, then the following Saturday you're away to Bayern Munich, and the cost implications of them. I've just flown to America, and that alone. Yeah. That was cheaper than flying somewhere around Europe, to be honest. As for my club, Dunstable Town, you've only got to look at us when Luton were in the Premier League last year. That affects us when Luton are at home. So, they're 10 minutes, 15 minutes down the road. So it does all have a knock-on effect to these clubs. I mean, a lot of people like watching, when Tottenham are away, they'll go and watch their local team. I'm all for watching your local team. I encourage it. I mean, if you've got a local non-league team near you, go and watch them play, because you do not know. You might just think it's your £8 going through that turnstile. That £8, trust me, will help them more than you will ever know. If you get 5 or 6 people doing that, it really does help non-league clubs out. So, yeah, I mean, as for Dunstable, if Tottenham were playing, or any of the big clubs, say for argument's sake, Luton become massive. I know they're looking to move into a new ground, and they got back into the Premier League, and they were travelling away on a Saturday. A lot of fans. I know one of my best mates, Steve. He's a humongous Luton fan. He couldn't take his whole family to go and watch them play in Milan. So, yeah, they'd all be down at Dunstable Town watching us play on a Saturday, where you can get in for like £8-9. You can get a season ticket for under £100. Kids under 18 come free. You get a free season ticket at Dunstable Town if you're under a certain age. So, you know what I mean? I'll always be an advocate for non-league football. So the more people if it benefits non-league football, to the fact that Tottenham are in this Super League, I'm all for it, because the more you can help non-league football and quote unquote what I call real football, it can only be for the better. You can only be for the better of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah. So £8 for a ticket to see Dunstable Town. What tier is Dunstable in, Andy? Sorry, as I say, I'm not overly familiar with it.
No, that's what we play. So we play Step 5 football. So it's just with 2 or 3 divisions below, like the Conference South. We play Step 5 football. It's a really good step that we play. It's a really high standard in the league that we play. We've had lots of like ex-pros drop down to the league. We had a guy called Andrew play for us last season. He'd spent a lot of time in the Scottish Premier League, come back to play non-league football down with us at Dunstable Town. So, yeah, we play Step 5 in the Spartan League, really competitively. Great club, Dunstable Town. So proud to represent them. Obviously, do a lot of the media work for them, do the podcasts for them, do like the game day interviews, etc., etc. Non-league football for me, like I just said to you guys, non-league football is real football. It's what it's what football used to be. Non-league football is for the fans. Dunstable Town is owned by the fans. The club is owned by the supporters. It's self-efficient. It's run by our fans. The chairman and the board have set that up some years ago now. They went, hey, look, we want to be self-efficient. Dunstable Town is run by its supporters. Any decision that's made at Dunstable Town, and if you're an owner, if you own, you can buy an ownership package for as little as £100. You can own part of the football club. So anyone out there that thinks, that the Man Cities and the Man Uniteds of this world and all that are running away with football, yeah, they are. But then you look at someone like Dunstable Town and a non-league club, and you have a say, you have a voice. We get 250, 300 people come and watch us on a Saturday. And to me, it will always be real football. Yes, I'm involved at Dunstable. I'm extremely proud to be part of Dunstable Town Football Club and what they're doing. But I urge anyone out there, if you've got a non-league club, whether you're in Scotland, whether you're in England, if you've got a local non-league club next to you, go and watch them if you can. If your big team, if Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, if you can't get to a game up there, go and find a local non-league team in Scotland. Go and support them. If you've got a spare hour or two a week, offer them some help. I can't stress to you enough how much non-league teams rely on volunteers, rely on the help. We've got a great, great bunch of people down at Dunstable Town that help us out. And that the podcast has elevated us into the next level. And I'm just a tiny part of that. I get to do things like this. I've been interviewed by BBC Radio, and I'll always wax lyrical about Dunstable Town every chance that I get, because to me, non-league football is and always will be real football.
Yeah. The reason I was asking that, Dennis, is we've been asked by a follower on Twitter, a guy, Scott Hartley. Scott's asked actually how we would compare the levels and the teams in Scotland with equivalent levels and what we've got in England. And I think what Scott means is, where would we rank our Premier League in a tier down south, or our League 2 in a tier down south, as opposed to, as Rangers and Celtic ready for the Premier League, or where would you put Hearts or Hibs or whatever? So it's an interesting debate. Personally, as I say, I don't think any clubs in League 2 would survive down in sort of England, the equivalent of League 2. And I think Rangers and Celtic, at best, are championship clubs. I know there's a shout about the Premier League. And I think the rest of our Premier League would probably fare in League 1 in England, I'll be honest.
Andy, does the Dunstable players get paid?
Yes, mate. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they get paid.
So, what would an average? What's a player normally get paid?
I don't know. Am I allowed to say this? My chairman's probably watching this. He might be texting me in a minute. Yeah, some of the players will probably be watching this as well. I don't know what I can say here too much. I don't want to get the sack. But I mean, in non-league football, non-league football has changed drastically. I know people in our step. We had a team called Real Bedford in our league last season. They were playing players nearly £200 a game, £200 a week to play maybe more. I know strikers in our step and the step above that are getting £250, £300 a week to play non-league football. Back in the day when I was playing, I was involved in non-league football in 97, 98. If you got £40 a game, you were lucky. So you can earn a very good living out of non-league football now. Yep, the Dunstable Town players get paid. I don't know if I want to divulge how much because I know a lot of them are watching this. But there's a ballpark thing. You can get anything between £40 a game and you can probably get £120, £130 a game at a good non-league club. Right. But if you're getting that a week, if you're a good striker at non-league level, you could easily a week get 350 plus a week. Yeah. Plus, you'll get a cheeky £20 goal bonus. You could earn. I know someone that's played non-league football now. He's played it for the last 10 years. He is on. I won't say his name because I don't want to get in trouble. He is on a month. If he scores, he gets all his goal bonuses, everything. He'll clear £1,300 a month.
Yeah.
Before he's even got his normal wage.
Part-time wage.
Part-time wage.
Yeah. If you look at our lower divisions will probably pay that and maybe a bit more because there is a scale. We've got our junior level, which falls into the bracket of what you're talking about with non-league. Now, the top non-league teams in England, I would assume, we're only going by the history of what I knew, some players were on about £1,500 a week.
Yeah, you look at the Conference South easily, if not more.
Yeah, that's right. We can call that almost non-league. But when you get to the non-league and you look at the stadiums that they have, now I don't know what Dunstable's like, but if you look at some of our stadiums that are even in our lower divisions or, we could take Albion Rovers one because I was there, and you look at that and I compare it with some of the English non-league teams, we're miles behind. And there is a gulf in stature when it comes to that. Albion Rovers and that division, well, I know they're out of it now and they're into the Lowland League. But if you look at the teams that were in that second division, say 10 years ago, some of the stadiums were, we'll use the word lightly, run down in comparison with the stadiums I have passed when I've been down south that are non-league. I've looked at these stadiums and went, oh, they must be a big club. Wow, they're not. They're actually a non-league team. Now, at that state, you say to yourself, we are miles behind. And I used to think the equivalent of junior in non-league Scotland was better, but certainly not better equipped, and we're not better financially. And I always look at it also and say, why is some of our, when you're talking there about that kind of salary, I know these guys will have jobs, but when I look at, say, £200 a week, and then I look at some of the bottom half of our Premier League clubs who could put them up in accommodation and give them a decent enough salary in our Premier League, there's got to be non-league footballers down there that could come up and play in our Premier League without a question of doubt. Because
Adam Rooney did the opposite, did he not? Did he not go for Aberdeen down to non-league and then obviously into league with Salford? You know, so we've had players do the opposite, just to
we should be tapping into that
in the non-league from our Scottish Premier League.
Yeah, but can we in Scotland should be tapping into that instead of going to see the other side of the world to see if we can bring somebody in there that just because his agents flogged him to Scottish football. There's no point in bringing a guy 3,000 miles away that hasn't got a Scooby about what goes on in say the Premier League bottom half of Scotland when you've got people down south who would lend themselves well to our game up here. And they'll not make a massive amount of money, but what a platform it is. Because
how would the biggest non-league team in whoever you guys will tell me, whoever the biggest non-league team in Scotland is, how would they compete in non-league football down south?
How non-league?
If you took your biggest non-league side, I don't know who that is. You'd have to educate me.
Looking at Paul Rock and Lake or something. Like that.
If you put them in the Conference South, or you put them in the top of the Spartan, where just above Dunstable, how do you think that would fare?
Probably in a level playing field with the same stadia, same support. I think they would do very well. because we have a lot of players that have gone similar to yourself that have actually come for senior football into it. And there used to be an abundance of them. That's where they finished up. And some of the teams were very, very good. We don't see a lot of junior football unless you actively go to it. It doesn't get the same coverage as England does in matches. There's an overspill now where, in my eyes, and we'll not go into it, women's football gets everything in relation to coverage, the whole shooting match, pitches, the whole, everything, right? But if we make a comparison, I think junior football gets shortchanged in relation to the way that the SFA look after them. They've been there for over a century, and they're just thrown into the gutter as if you'll be self-sufficient, and if you actually continue in your own vein, that's up to you. If you don't, you fall into the gutter and by the wayside, so what? And yet you've got the women's football's promoted to the hilt, and it's nowhere near the level because it's a different sport altogether in my eyes. But come back to the question, would we compete at junior level to non-league? Yes. On stadia? No. On fan support? Probably not. We've got half a dozen maybe teams that can support maybe over 1,000 supporters every week.
You boys will have to set up a Dunstable Town friendly next season for me in one of your big non-league clubs. I'll try and get Dunstable up there for a pre-season. I can generally make that happen probably as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good shout. Yeah, you'll need to pay their expenses.
Oh, no way. The boys. I'm sure the boys would love a weekend away. They won't. They'll love an excuse to go away for a weekend. Know about that?
Yeah. I mean, we've had we've started the pyramid up here, Andy, maybe 10 years or so ago, and there's clubs coming from former non-league clubs who have gone into the sort of League 2 up here now as it is, and they've actually fared reasonably well. So I think in terms of our non-league, in a lot of ways, it's actually stronger than the bottom end of our professional leagues. Personally, in terms of what Scott was asking, in that respect, switching it around slightly,
And that can only benefit Scottish football, right? I mean, look, I'm no great expert on Scottish football, but I've got a lot of family that are north of the border, and staunch. I've got some friends that are massive, like Glasgow Rangers fans. If you want Scottish football to get better, this is where you need to go and get your talent from. Like you say, stop traveling to like all over the world. Go and if you've got a good non-league setup. I know one of my best mates, one of my good friends is Jermaine Beckford. He was with us at Willstone. He went from Willstone to play for Leeds United. He went on to Everton in the Premier League, come through non-league football. If Scotland want to grow their game and stop all this talk of, all I've ever known is Celtic and Rangers to win your league. That's all I've ever known in the 44 years I've been on this planet. If Scottish football wants to get better, then you need to go in and tap into these young lads that are in the lower league, get better academies, because academies down here, they're great, but they're there just for show. No one comes through the academies because they'll go and get a foreign player, or they'll go and pay X amount of money. In Scotland, if you want to grow your game, make your academies the best academies in Europe, because that way, you'll get through players that are going to come through and play for Hearts, play for Celtic, play for Rangers, play for Aberdeen, and you're going to grow your game. You're not going to lose them straight away to Man City, Liverpool, because they're not, no disrespect, they're not looking there. They're not even looking in their own academies. So they're not going to come to Scotland and steal your best players. So if you can grow your academies.
Ours is not coming out of the academy. I can guarantee you that. You would assume that would be the case. If you look at academies, Billy Gilmore, that plays with Scotland, he's a success story. You go beyond that, and I really have to start thinking deeply of somebody that is of that level and that stature, and who you think will be potentially a superstar in his own right. Our academies do nothing. What comes out of Lennoxton is where Celtic play, and Murray Park where Rangers play, their training grounds. Considering the amount of years that they have had these facilities, it is diabolical in relation to first team players getting an opportunity and selling them on. Some people might disagree with what I'm saying, but I'll assure you, for the money that goes into these training stadiums and facilities compared to what is actually produced, no use. But then there's a lot of young boys go to these academies, and they're disillusioned by the fact that when they come away, that they've been spoiled. I've had players when I was managing who came from Rangers, and his whole mindset of how to play the game wasn't what teams wanted, and he couldn't adapt. He couldn't adapt just simple things in the park, the way his lifestyle was. Players, when they go to the Old Firm as an example, or these academies, find it very hard to go maybe to a lower club, a lower division, because a lot of them think they've arrived when they get there without even making the first team. So there's a whole cycle there of things that actually happen from them going in there to they come out. Now, I know for a fact it's improving. It's improving because I spoke to one of the youth coaches, and he's got so many forums that need to be filled in about performance of the youngsters and everything else, and that's great. So that when the future and when it comes up, at least they're no, what would you say, baffled by why they've not made it. So there's an element there of them improving. But over the years, no, we do not produce as much talent out of Scotland as you would expect. And yet you go back to the 60s, and I know that's a long while ago, everything was down the motorway to Manchester, Liverpool, London, with all the best talent. The Dennis Laws, the Billy Brenmers, even Dalglish in that era. You could go on and on and on. We don't have that now.
No.
We don't have it.
Again,
I grew up with like Graham Souness, Gordon Strachan, great. You knew that Scotland produced good players, but that's where football is now. Unfortunately, and for Scottish football, that's where football is now. Like you said, you mentioned Billy Gilmore there, but I can't think of modern day. You can go back as like Gary McAllister and players like that.
Yeah.
But really, like when you're talking absolute superstars, like Graham Souness was an absolute superstar. Gordon Strachan's one of the best players to ever lace a pair of boots. Of that ilk, Ali McCoy's one of the greatest strikers that's ever lived, in my opinion. Them days are gone in Scottish football. I can sit here now as a 44-year-old man. I can go and chat to my daughter who's in the next room to me and say to me, "Name me a Scottish footballer."
Yeah,
she look at me like I've got two heads. When I was growing up, my dad could say, "Andy, do you want?" I could, because my dad's is a huge Leeds United fan. That's why I love Leeds United. But I could name you endless Scottish players that have changed the world game. Now, I probably couldn't name you 5.
Mm-hmm. You know something? We've got very few now playing in the Scottish Premier League, and we have people that have been brought up in England, and we've had them from Australia. We've got all different sort of nationalities now that basically don't play in the Scottish Premier League. We don't have that. But way back 20 years ago, maybe a bit longer, you would find at least half your team and a bit more were from the Scottish Premier League teams like Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, stuff like that. I mean, we had Miller and McLeish as central half defenders who were from Aberdeen back when Ferguson was around in the 80s and stuff like that. We don't have that now. We've got Hanley and we've got McKenna. McKenna up until recently didn't have a club. And then Hanley's been at Norwich City, and I don't know how many times he's been with them when they've got relegated. So that's what we have as central defenders now. It's not Scottish. They're not playing in Scotland anymore. And that's a difficult thing as well. But as I say, there's not many Billy Gilmores. That's just a different thing when you talk about the international, because I think we're in a decent enough place with them compared to what we were a few years ago.
Yeah, as we've discussed about Scottish clubs, and probably to a slightly lesser extent, Andy, you've got it down there as well. Clubs just are not producing homegrown players. They're more than happy, at Manchester City or at Manchester United or at Spurs to go out and spend 60, 70 million pound on foreign players, or, as I say, up here, cheaper imports than the homegrown players. And I think 20 years ago fans accepted that, but fans now want to see their own players coming through. We want to see Scottish players coming through, Rangers coming through, Celtic coming through, Aberdeen, Hearts. You look at Manchester City, they brought in 2 or 3 players. The guy in the middle of the park is outstanding. They've got another couple of young players as well. But Arsenal don't have anybody at all. It really is a case of instant success. There's nobody now prepared to blood players and get the success through that.
No, it all comes back to money. You look at the Liverpool boot room, you look at the class of 92, them things just don't happen anymore. And that's literally all because of money. Clubs are too scared to, nurture their own talent. If you go on Google and type in how many Chelsea players are out on loan, it's in the hundreds.
Yeah.
It's in the hundreds, and they're dotted all over the world. They're not just in like League One, League Two, non-league Scottish football. They're all over the world, and Tottenham are the same, Arsenal are the same. Gone are the days, like I just said, the Liverpool boot room, the class of 92 at Manchester United, all them guys, Beckham, Scholes, but all them guys that have come through that academy football. We just sold, Tottenham just sold to Leicester what's his name? It'll come back to me in a minute. Just gone to Leicester, probably one of the last players to come through our academy. Harry Winks he's moved on to Leicester, but very few come through academies anymore. And I don't think that will ever happen. Like I just said to you guys a minute ago, I think academies are just for show now. Yeah. They're just for show because no one. Oh, we've got this great academy. Look at Dunstable Town. We might lose some great youngsters that we have come through, and we've got a tremendous youth setup at Dunstable Town. Probably, in my opinion, one of the best around this local area. But you'll get they'll get lost in the system at a Luton Academy or at a Watford Academy. And don't get me wrong, they've probably got more chance of playing football at them and maybe going on to the higher level, but they'll never. And I mean this with all the due respect. You've got to be an absolute wonder kid to go and play for a Man United, a Man City, a Liverpool, a Tottenham, and have come through the academy. Because they, like you guys said, they'd rather spend X amount of money going and get some 19-year-old whiz kid from Spain. But what's the difference between the 19-year-old whiz kid from Spain? Oh, he's come through the Barcelona Academy. This guy's just come through the Tottenham Academy or the Luton Academy. Well, if you want our international game to get better, and we're great, we've made 2 Euro finals. But if you want to keep growing the game in England, and I said that's what I come back to earlier with Scotland. If you want to grow the game, grow your academies and use your players more. I think there should be a cap. I think you should have 4 homegrown players in each team. That way, Scottish football would get better. English football, the national team would get a lot better because you have to have. Say if they said to Rangers, Hearts, Aberdeen, St Mirren, whoever, right, guys, Celtic, you need to have 4 academy players that come through your team that are homegrown, that are Scottish. Man United, you have to have 4 English players in your team, in your squad, that are English. You do that around the world and the world game will get better. But that will never happen in a million years because of the likes of Saudi Arabia, because of the likes of the MLS back in the day when they were getting all the players, because of the Barcelona academies of this world. That will never happen. That is why football now, as we know it, and I've said this 1,000 times, is not what we used to know it. And that is why I love non-league football, because to me, it will always be what I class as football now. And, it's dying what we know as football.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think I talked to you briefly on this, Cammy, about how I would structure it by homegrown talent being in the team. In other words, if you weren't prepared to play them, they had to, not just in your substitutes bench. In other words, you have to have shown the amount of minutes and hours they have played throughout the season to justify your league payout or whatever television rights you got, so that basically you were penalised if you didn't actually produce these players on the park. Yeah. So you're in the same wavelength as I am, but I think you actually said that won't happen, and that's the difficult part. Getting people to change for the better of the game, while there's still this lot that go to games with a tartan rug over their knees, it won't change, and that's the difficult part.
Yeah, because again, we're only looking at short term. There's no thought of growing the game, which is why Scottish football, the Scottish international team just now is currently in probably the biggest shit state it's been in quite some time. You've got the fortunate position down there, and as you say, you've had 2 Euro finals. But if you had a better blooding system, if you like, who's to say you wouldn't have won these Euro finals rather than, obviously, as you say, you lost to Spain, you've lost to Italy, but we do not think long term. It's far too much short-termism. It's far too much about the money, and it's far too much about winning trophies as it is now, and managers making sure they keep a hold of their well-paid jobs.
Cammy,
football's very much about the here and now.
Yeah, far too much.
We have the equivalent in football terms, like carbon footprint. Nobody's striving forward to see us doing that. There's certain individuals that are doing it throughout the world with a carbon footprint, but it's only dipping your toe in the ocean. It's not enough. And that is because I've said people are trying to do it, but it's not enough. We're not seeing it. It's not making a dent in their game, either north or south of the border. It's not happening. And I don't know who will rectify it, because there's not a lot of people are prepared to put their head above the parapet when there are a lot of them are making a nice living off the game without rocking the boat.
No, indeed. Well, guys, we've been going an hour and 10 minutes. I think we're coming towards the end of the pod. Either the two of you get anything to mention before I'll give our best wishes to Adam Webb the St Johnstone owner, who
Yeah.
has been diagnosed recently and came out and obviously says he got brain and neck cancer, or head and neck cancer, I think. So obviously our thoughts go out to him and best wishes. But have either of the two of you got anything you want to share before the end of the pod?
Yeah, it's always sad to hear people that are unwell that have put something into the game, and you just feel for that, because everybody somewhere in the corner has got family or friends that are not well, and it's you know the feeling. So it's not great.
So best wishes to him. But anything else, Dennis, for yourself that you want to that
I
we've not
just
covered?
Well, we're just looking at the fixtures for the weekend. Just quickly, we've got the League Cup section in the quarterfinals. Aberdeen have got Spartans. What a tie that is for Spartans. Unbelievable. Dougie Samuels is the manager at Spartans, and I'll tell you what, I bet he'll have bother keeping these guys for being on the roof, trying to pull them down onto their seats before he just team talking out there. So that's Saturday at 5:30, that kick-off. Again, it's a 5:30 kick-off with Rangers are having Dundee, and that again is a difficult tie for Rangers. We haven't spent any time on talking about the result last week where they managed to win 1-0. And then Sunday, we have a nice tie for Falkirk going to Parkhead. I'm sure Falkirk will give them a wee run for their money. But
I said that a month ago. That'll be Celtic's most difficult tie of the season, and as things go at the moment, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right.
You're right, because I contradicted you and said, well, I've still got Bratislava, but having looked at Bratislava, you were 100% right, Cammy. So
I've got to get something right once. Even a broken clock's right twice a day.
Yeah, there's a game on today.
Just now.
Yeah, just now, which is 31 minutes gone, and it's Motherwell playing Dundee United, and it's still 0-0. That again will be a good game. Two ambitious,
will be enjoying that one.
Yeah, two ambitious managers. So anyway, I think we'll sort of disregard the rest of the league games, Cammy, because we've been a bit longer than you maybe anticipated. But brilliant, Andy, you come on, because certainly you have more knowledge than a lot of people up here, probably myself as well, but we'll not say that at this time.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, man.
Anything yourself, Andy? You want to plug anything that you're doing, or obviously give Dunstable another few words? Or
yeah, I mean, if anyone, we talk non-league football most weeks. We do post-match, we do pre-match. I sit down with our manager, Steve O'Reilly, after every game and before every training session on a Thursday. Most of our content's on Twitter, now known as X, is at DTFC Pod. If anyone wants to follow us, we talk all things non-league football, Dunstable Town. I just urge anyone out there, like I just said to you guys, if a non-league club's near you and you get a chance to go and watch them, really do go and support them, because it does help them out. And if you want to come and find out what we do on a weekly basis, come check us out. Or you can go to the Dunstable Town YouTube page, hit subscribe, and that's where you'll find all our content.
Yeah. Andy, thanks very much. I really appreciate the time you're giving us tonight, mate. It was great to be able to repay the favour. Obviously, I was on your pod a few months ago, and as I say, it's great to get you on. And your knowledge on football definitely surpasses mine on American football. I'll definitely say that to you.
Thanks, and I know how hard it is to start up a podcast. So honestly, I wish you guys every success. Any help I can give you, any help you need. It's a tremendous show. It's great what you're doing, and it opens people's eyes as well. I'm not gonna lie, I don't pay loads of attention to Scottish football, but when I sit down and I hear you guys talk about like the grassroots of Scottish football and the non-league, and all we hear down here is Celtic and Rangers. There are other clubs outside of that. So I think what shows like you guys are doing, obviously you're highlighting the Premier League and stuff like that, and the Champions League, but keep doing what you're doing, guys. Honestly, it's a tremendous thing to start a podcast like this and go live on YouTube every week. It's not easy, trust me. So tremendous job what you're doing. I'm truly honoured to join you guys.
Yeah, really appreciate it,
Andy. So thanks a lot, and I'm sure we'll catch up again.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be bringing the Dunstable Town team up there next pre-season.
Look forward to it, mate. Look forward to it. And if I don't see you before September at a Dunstable game or down south, I know Hartley's trying to arrange something for February.
We've talked about our draft. Yeah, I'll be in touch with you, mate. We're looking at flying to Dublin to do our draft party next year. We try and do a draft party every year. So Cammy, I'll definitely reach out to you, mate, and we'll get you over to Dublin with us.
Yeah, cool. I'll be there for that one. Well, listen, you've been listening tonight to the Friday Night Football Pitch. As I say, like, subscribe, tell your pals. Hit the notification bells on YouTube. You'll be notified of every video that we do, every short that we put up as well. As I say, Thanks very much. Good night.